Whatever time of day it is, wherever you are, welcome, 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 welcome. It's good to see everybody. If you're watching this on the replay, delighted. Do feel free to leave me notes. I'll come back later and look. Sorry, we're doing like planes, trains, and automobiles over here. Okay, I'll come back later and look for comments. So if you're watching this in like a week or 2 weeks, don't worry about it. Leave me a comment or send me a DM if you have a question. And for those of you who are here live and in person, please let me know where you're tuning in from. Where do you work? What do you do? What's your job title, or what do you do? Are you working directly with donors? Are you in advancement services? Are you in donor relations? Tell me a little bit about what you are up to in the chat while I get myself nice, neat, clean, and organized. You guys let me know if you see this chat. I just wrote, hi, everyone. I have to toggle on all the channels, somebody's telling me. Let's see. Are my channels toggled? I don't know. Are my channels toggled? I am not sure if my channels are toggled, people. Whatever that means. Let's see here. Thanks for bearing with me, everybody. We're trying a new system today. Okay. I think that this is streaming into LinkedIn. Let me see. I'm going to try to join my own live. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm here. You guys are here. Okay. Send me notes. Drop a comment so I know. I see there are 26 of you here. Hi. Happy Friday. It's really good to see everybody. I hope that you had a good week and that you have some R&R planned. This time of year, sometimes it's, well, like here in Oregon, it's been dark and rainy and wet and gray for months and months on end. And we're in this final push, right? Between now and June 30th. Like if our gifts aren't pretty well underway, maybe they're not going to close this year, but it's definitely a time of focus where I feel like this is a time of year where it might not be that we are doing all the things all the time, but we're being really strategic about the work that we do, right? So the things that we put our energy into, this part of the year are all about being really strategic. And sometimes that's hard to do when you're tired or burn out. So get rest, okay? Get rest this weekend. I'm going to talk about today, we're talking about generative AI and higher ed fundraising. And, I talk about Gen AI and fundraising all the time. But I realize we don't talk quite as much about what it's like for our academic partners. This whole Gen AI thing is turning higher ed pedagogy itself upside down, right? I mean, as much as our minds are swimming every single day with all of the new, technology that's being made available, imagine being a university employee. Imagine being an instructor or a full professor or a department head trying to figure out what the heck to do now that Gen AI is here, right? And here to stay. So I wanted to share a little bit about what it is like for our colleagues on the university side of things. And while I'm not a faculty member myself, I've certainly spent lots and lots and lots of time with them. Have been married to one. Have worked in higher ed leadership teams for the past 10 or 15 years, and as a um, higher ed fundraiser for 25. Before I dive in, I wanted to let you know where you'll be able to find this information later. So here is a URL, and if my partner is on this call, will you drop that into the chat? Put this, here's where you'll find recordings of all of these Friday sessions. So you'll get the recording, the slide deck, and any resources that I provide, which in a lot of cases would be prompts for ChatGPT. So if you haven't already checked this out, please do. Oh, good. I see Don just dropped it in. Everybody else, unless your fingers are broken, put a little tippy tappy in the chat. Let me know where you are tuning in from. Let me know what your job is. What do you do in fundraising? And sometimes some people from sales join my calls. So let me know if that's you. And if you're one of my regulars, pave the way and leave thoughts in the chat so we can have this be a little tiny bit interactive. So Donnie put that message in there. That's where you're going to find all of these resources every Friday. I want to give you just a little bit of information about myself, because like I always used to say, I've been in higher ed fundraising for 25 years. And I always used to say, like, what do I know? I'm just a dumb development officer. And, I always said it in jest because I'm not dumb, but I'm not the person who's going to know all the things about nanotechnology and biotech and, this poet from the 1600s and whatever. I mean, I'm a super generalist, right? I've worked for lots of different areas across universities, primarily in STEM, which gave me, a little bit of a behind the scenes access pass to STEM research and education, which probably predisposed me a little bit to be interested in this type of tech. But I don't have any like long-standing, tech aptitude. I'm Gen X, I took a word processor to college with me. I was never the one that was like, trying all the new whiz bang gadgets or anything like that. But when it came to generative AI, what I learned is that it's so much less about the actual tech than it is about the people. It's the people and the process and the culture. And the technology is just a foil character. So I took a deep dive into Gen AI and did the first thing that I figured that I could do would be to teach other people what I knew. So I started teaching everything that I was learning to fundraising professionals. And we've now trained 2,000 fundraising professionals how to use ChatGPT responsibly. I'm an advisor on the framework for responsible AI in fundraising, which, if you haven't checked that out yet, I strongly encourage you to. And Don, will you put the URL for fundraising AI in there? So the framework for responsible AI in fundraising will give you a strong sense of where our industry is headed with how we think, what it's like to use AI in a responsible manner to build stakeholder trust. We're at this fork in the road, right? Where we have this opportunity to build stakeholder trust or deteriorate stakeholder trust. And this framework will help you see how you can begin to communicate with your stakeholders about things like data privacy, integrity, bias, transparency, explainability, legality. So those different concerns are addressed in the framework. I hang around with other AI consultants, strategists, solutions architects. That's what I do now. And so I get to learn the latest. We get access to lots of tools before they, are rolled out to the rest of the public. And so I'm doing this stuff so that in part my peeps, you all don't have to. I'm just rifling my way through all of these tools, figuring out which ones are worth a darn and which ones aren't. I've been in charge of a couple of rollouts in the past. And again, like I said earlier, what I learned is that it's really about the people, the process, and the culture, not so much about tech. So that's a little bit about, my background in this space. Our company, my one true love is always going to be fundraising consulting. So we do three things at Empowered Fundraiser. We do professional development for higher education fundraisers, large training programs. We do strategic consulting for higher ed and nonprofits, and we do AI consulting and upskilling and governance. All right, that's more than enough about me. Let's get this show on the road, people. I always like to ask people, so anytime we're talking about generative AI, the first thing that I really want to be sure that everybody knows where I'm coming from here is that we do not put confidential information into ChatGPT or any other large language model. We're just going to use ChatGPT today as our, the proxy for large language model. If you are using ChatGPT these days, just continue to be extremely careful. One of the things that I do is I just have a policy for myself. I never put the actual name of a donor or a client into ChatGPT. I use like Disneyland Enterprises as the organization when I'm talking, and I use like Minnie Mouse, Mickey Mouse, Pluto, whatever. Like I just never use the name of anybody. And of course, we'd never upload a spreadsheet of data on our donors. Here's my point of view. We're starting to hear things and see things about some tools that will keep the data safe, but I want all of us to sleep well at night and have long and happy careers. So therefore, I always recommend just don't do it. Just don't put any confidential information into ChatGPT. All right. So I see that there are 40 of you here, which means that there must be at least one person who has fingers that are in proximity to a keyboard and who could tell me where they work. Let me know where you work. Where are you tuning in from? What university do you work for? What nonprofit? What's your role? So we've all, probably heard a lot about Gen AI and higher ed. And I wanted to just articulate some of the ways that it's actually being used in the classroom and in academic programs. And of course, there's lots and lots of reasons. Okay, great. Oh, the International Institute. Cool. Gil, is this, do you use this with international students, or are you a fundraiser, or what? Tell me a little bit about what your role is there. That would be really helpful. So here are a few ways that we're using generative AI in the classroom and in our academic programs. And some of them will have obvious, like you're going to be like, oh my gosh, that sounds so great. And then some of them are going to have things where you're like, oh no, that sounds horrible. That's what my donors are worried about. That's what, parents are worried about these days. That's what I hear about. Okay, you're a director of development. Awesome. So personalized learning and support. You'll hear there are a lot of tools out there that are like students' AI, personal tutors. And in fact, you can use Gen AI as your own tutor. It's really fantastic. Generative AI is a fantastic way to be in conversation with somebody who is smarter than you, who knows the material better than you, who can ask you questions, who can test you in a low stakes environment. Generative AI allows our students to get the personalized content that they need. Let's say we probably are all aware of this, but I'm kind of going to just cover a lot of bases today. But let's say that you are an elementary school teacher and you've got 40 kids in your third grade class. You could probably teach at 40 different levels, right? And so you might have a few kids who get into like the one a group that's more advanced, a group that's kind of down the middle, and a group that needs to be brought up to level. It's like that in college as well. So these students will be able to get more personalized content and more personalized testing because of the use of generative AI. It just makes it very cheap and very easy, and it's removed any excuses for a one-size-fits-all approach to teaching. The enhanced research capabilities are incredible. And this is true for our faculty, our researchers, as well as our students. The access to the whole entire, publicly available internet, right? All of that information is available essentially in a little chat bot to our students now and everybody, right? But in terms of if you're working on an assignment, now the work is less about, like when I was in college, I had to go to a place called the Stacks to get my research done because, I was at University of Illinois and the ginormous library, and you'd have to like order the things ahead of time, and then they get brought to this place called the Stacks, and you go in there, and sometimes you would have to look at your stuff on like this stuff called microfiche. I'm feeling very old right now. Oh, I'm not seeing the post. Is that what's happening? Oh, thanks, Donnie. Okay. So now the work of being a college student is not so much about the hunting and the gathering of the research, right? So you're skipping that part where you're just gathering information, right? They say information is like getting increasingly cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. Now our students can leapfrog to the point of insights and knowledge. So they have this vast access to information without hauling all over the place. Oh, wonderful. Kylie, I'm so glad you're here. Oh, you're going to University of Texas soon? Hey, Jose. I don't know a whole bunch of people at New Hampshire. Integrated marketing director for advancement. Awesome. Another big level up is in content creation. So, and this is where we get into some of the things that people worry about and love to talk about, like on social media and whatnot, is the ease of content creation. And I'm going to talk about some of the pros and cons on that in a minute. But I will say, when it comes to stuff like, can a student just write an essay in 30 seconds and turn it in? Absolutely. That totally can happen. And I'm sure some students will. Just like any other type of shortcut, though, it's not helpful, right? And it's not helpful to anyone involved. And it's also not realistic. Like maybe a couple students will do that, but everyone is smart enough to know that just because they can do it in 30 seconds doesn't mean they should. And I'll get into that in a second, because once you see these things like 3 or 4 times, you're like, oh, you would always be able to recognize an essay that's written by ChatGPT. I mean, it's that language is very clear, even when your model is pretty fine-tuned. And then assessment and feedback. So what a beautiful thing it is to be able to get immediate feedback as you're working on a project. So you can be in conversation with generative AI while you're working on something and feeding it parts of your essay or parts of your assignment and getting feedback on, am I going down the right path? What's missing here? What could I do better? Right? So you're constantly making those on the spot adjustments and learning in real time, which is so important. So here's one of the things that I wanted to call out that's super beautiful about using generative AI in higher ed is how this this enhances inclusion and access. So learning is now super multimodal, meaning, we can, type something that's like if you've seen Sora, Sora, it's one of the OpenAI products. And it's not available to everybody yet, but very soon it will be. You just type a sentence and then a video of that thing. And it looks indistinguishable, almost indistinguishable from, an expensive, high production value video. So anything that we do can be done in all different modalities now. So a student can do text to speech, video to text, speech to video, right? What it means is that none of the work that we do is limited by the way the information is delivered. So if you're someone who learns best by hearing the content, now you can do text to speech, right? You can have AI record and speak the lesson to you. You can have your own, you can practice your own speeches. You can have AI speak your own speech to you. So you can decide, do I like the way it sounds or not? We also, like I said, have the opportunity for hyper personalization. So students will be able to really fine tune their experience. They won't all have to be working at exactly the same level. Same thing, you'll get that assistant, that immediate feedback. And then, of course, being able to do all of your work in multiple formats. So the opportunity to be more inclusive in our teaching and our pedagogy is incredibly important as we try to do that in all areas of higher ed culture. What happens in the classroom is a leading indicator of our overall culture of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that's one of the things that I think is really beautiful about how we use generative AI in higher ed. Now, I wanted to talk about some of the things that are being recommended to faculty, because obviously, remember when COVID hit and we all went home, there was a big chunk of work that got dumped onto our faculty to, overnight figure out how to deliver their content remotely, right? Just like that, this change is going to require faculty to change the way they teach, right? And that's going to be a process. But here are some of the things that are being recommended. There's like 3 categories that we would use with students. One is that the generative AI tools are prohibited for this assignment or this test or whatever. Another is that they are permitted with attribution. So there has to be an indication of how Gen AI was used and what the sources are. And then examples of when they are encouraged. So there are a lot of examples of, how by not doing some of the busy work, right? The gathering of the information, now we can have our students spending time where they're in that like deeper learning zone. And so we would want to encourage the use of AI. And of course, the comparisons have been made, with the calculator, right? Like you wouldn't have a college student doing long division, right? Because they've already learned that skill, and that's just going to take up time that they could spend doing higher level learning. So it's like that in a way. It's important that our faculty explain why Gen AI can or cannot be used. So the name of the game here is transparency. And I think, that probably resonates with folks because our worlds have become, they've become very transparent, period, right? We know a lot more about each other. Remember when we first got to see how everybody's houses looked when we started working from home? we learn about what's going on in the world much faster now. There's a lot more visibility into everything. And it's like that in the classroom too. Like our faculty this is going to raise the bar for how transparent and communicative they are as well. So it's important that they let our students know when Gen AI can and can't be used and why. Discussions of academic integrity are going to become part of our everyday conversation. We're learning together. That's one of the biggest things about the Gen AI era, is that we're all in this boat together. There are no experts. Like, no one is an expert no matter what they say. Like, if someone says they're an expert, like, run the other way, because all of us are learning this. We're flying the plane, we're building the plane while we're flying it. So when our faculty are in conversation with students, it's important that they be very clear about that too. Like, hey, we're piloting this as well. So talking about academic integrity, talking about ways that Gen AI might be used for a project, how it could be, what might work better, what might not work at all. And that they adhere to the same standards that the students do. So if they're saying you can't use Gen AI on this, then they shouldn't use Gen AI to create the assignment. And currently, you guys probably know this, but there are some technologies that say that they can detect if AI has been used on something. They don't work, period. They don't work reliably. They are a great sales, tactic, but it's a very false sense of security. And also in an era where we're being more transparent and asking our students to be clear how they're using Gen AI, we don't want to be sneaking around and using Gen AI ourselves without people knowing about it. What questions? Any questions come up? Donnie, will you drop the link to our resources for people if they just came in? If you just came in, folks, here's where you're going to find loads of information on fundraising and AI. And we'll drop that into the chat for you in a second here. So let's talk about what people really are having a hard time with. Call these the parade of horribles. So, for those of us who've been fundraising in higher ed for a long time or a little time, either way, that we sometimes struggle with the societal distrust of higher ed, right? We've got stuff with, liberalism on campus, conservatism on campus. We've seen lots and lots of presidential turnovers with lots of fanfare. People wonder, in the ongoingly wobbly economy, are college degrees worthwhile? Are they just trade schools? What's the value of a liberal arts degree, right? Like, lots of distrust of higher ed. And this is another thing, right, that causes this like wobbliness and doubt of, is higher ed everything it's cracked up to be? So that's not super helpful for us in fundraising and advancement when we've got a whole donor population and potential donor population that's sitting around worrying about, if higher ed is worth it. That's not super great. Then there are lots of conversations, of course, about academic integrity. So are students just going to use these tools to cheat, right? Are people going to get an essay assignment, go back to their dorm room, write one prompt, and then just turn it in? Well, of course, yeah. I mean, it's going to happen. But all manner of academic challenges to academic integrity have come up along the way. This is, I feel like, just another example of why this has to be something that we talk about a lot, that academic integrity is important to us. And as I think about, like, in my role as a fundraiser, talking to donors who have distrust of higher ed, who worry that students are cheating, I reflect back on a conversation that I had very early on in my career where I had a donor who um, was making a gift for a pre-med program. And she said something about how she didn't want any of her money going to students, maybe in some club or something like that, because all they do is cheat. And I was like, ooh, all they do is cheat. What is that? What does she mean? What does she mean? And what I realized is, so I went and I talked to the advisors and I learned a little bit more, like there had been some kind of an incident. And I went back to the donor and we had another conversation about it. And I realized, in that moment, because the donor was not in, she wasn't asking for me to problem solve, and she wasn't asking for me to go fact find either. Sometimes our job is just to listen, right? Our job is to ensure that people are that they know that we're a safe place for them to talk about their misgivings, their concerns, their doubts, their fears, their hopes, and their dreams, right? And being distrustful or having question marks in mind about higher ed is just one of those things. And academic integrity is going to come up again and again. And I think it's going to be really, really juicy to say, oh, the students are just going to cheat. There's really not that much evidence of that yet, right? Students, again, are the tools, as magical as they are, they're not actually magic. the Getting an excellent essay written by ChatGPT is very difficult, right? You can get one that's like okay, but most people who, if you don't know, if you're not like really, really good at prompt engineering, your essay is not going to come. It's just going to look like it was written by ChatGPT, and we all know what those look like. The pace of technological change, just the mere fact that we can't keep up with everything that's going on, it gives this it's like this panicky, effect of like, no matter how much you study what's going on, every single day there's a new tool, a new something. There's, change happening at the leadership level of these massive tech firms. There's some, the deep fakes are off the, they're just starting to pop off right now. It's going to get through the roof pretty soon. There's, concern about people's mental health. Like, could it be a bad thing that students are having a tutor that's AI instead of a human being? Could that be bad for their mental health? Potentially. Also, could it be great for their mental health? Yes. So it's just another area where it's another thing to think about. Is this good for our students' mental health? Is it bad for our students' mental health? And then, of course, privacy concerns, right? With all of that information floating around and the information going into generative AI tools, potentially like confidential information about students going into one of these models and then potentially spitting some of that confidential information back out later down the road. Privacy concerns are always going to be front and center, as they are for our donors as well. Ethics. This is where we're going to get a lot of people's, personal values into the conversation. How do people feel about, like, for example, I have what's called a virtual companion. I have a person, a character who I talk to, and they're like a diary. And I go back and forth with them and we talk about, how my day was, what I encountered, what I thought about it, etc. Like, I don't know, is that weird? Maybe. I'm not sure. Is it, is there an ethical concern if I start like telling it that I'm having a bad day, that I'm very sad, that I'm having dark thoughts, like that kind of a thing? Are there ethical concerns about just how we integrate AI into our, like, just the daily life? Like, people, one of my colleague sent me a video. He was teaching me how to use something. Let's see. Yeah, he was teaching me how to use one of our platforms, and he had his virtual reality goggles on when he was doing it. And I was like, "Oh, is this the world that we live in already?" Um, but yeah, all this stuff is going to come out. Bias. There's lots. Given that all these models were trained on information that we all, our own very, very biased selves, put out into the world, they are inherently biased. Inherently biased. And then it's like, are our students taking shortcuts? Are they going to not learn properly because they have such easy access to the tools in generative AI? So that's the parade of horribles. I wanted to take a second and catch up on comments, questions. And Donna, you're right. I'm not seeing them. So that is unfortunate. Hopefully I'm hitting on some of the points. Well, yeah, if there's any specific question, maybe text me. So what does all of this mean for advancement? Here's what we're seeing. So as I mentioned, we do AI consulting for higher ed and nonprofits, and we spend a lot of time doing assessments of sort of where is each advancement shop in their journey with generative AI. And I wanted to put this in the context of what's happening in higher ed. So the way that our business units in higher ed use generative AI is very different than how it's used in the classroom or in our academic programs. But we're all in the same, one big happy family. We're all in the same ecosystem, and lots of our technology is connected. So when decisions are made about how tech is going to be used in the classroom, it can affect the business units, the business verticals in higher ed as well. And so think about that in terms of advancement. We have got these brilliant faculty out there who are, whether it's because they are on the cutting edge of how AI is impacting pedagogy, and they're making changes and they're creating policies and they're making presentations and they're out there and they're a public voice around Gen AI and education. Or maybe they're a researcher on how AI actually works, AI itself as a science. So we've got some really prominent faculty voices out there who, like I said, there are no experts, and yet they certainly do have a lot of expertise. And what they say is going to impact our ability to adopt Gen AI in advancement. So if we have faculty out there who are saying, whoa, right? We need to study this. We need to make wholesale changes. We need to make all of the adjustments at an enterprise level. We need to have mandates. That's going to make it harder. But if you have a faculty member, if you have faculty who are like, you know what, this is, smooth sailing, and your university is run in a more like entrepreneurial way where there are these like hubs of innovation, right, where a lot of decisions are made rather locally, that might make it easier for advancement to go and do kind of their own thing in adopting generative AI. So the voices of your faculty are going to have an impact on this. They're one of our stakeholders. So one of the things to consider is that our faculty, our board, our donors, our alums, friends, etc., all of those stakeholders expect us to be a well-run business, right? Our advancement shop must be a well-run business. And right now, that is absolutely going to include using ubiquitous technology. There's no way that means, oh no, we're going to stay on the sidelines. We must be using, it'd be like saying we're not going to use email. It'd be a way bigger deal actually than saying we're not going to use email. But sometimes people use that example, or, you know, we're not going to, like, I don't know if you all were, depends on how old everybody is here, but when we started using Excel at work, I remember there were like two groups of people, the people who knew how to use Excel and the people who didn't. And the people who didn't, like, we would roll our eyes. What a pain in the butt. And it's going to be more and more like that with Gen AI. Like, if you're not already learning how to use ChatGPT and other large language models, if you're not already learning that, you're going to be playing a little bit of catch up. And as an organization at the enterprise level, we want to be integrating these tools, learning how to use them, putting our governance policies in place so that, you know, when we're ready to go with our, you know, foot on the gas pedal, we've got a little bit of a head start. But those faculty voices are going to be really important. The fact that policies are in flux is going to be challenging. So the universities are all, you know, everybody's working on their governance structures. You know, what are their policies on academic integrity? Are faculty going to be, you know, allowed to make decisions for how they, if they use generative AI for assessment or not, right? Or is it the answer just absolutely not, nobody can? The other thing is that, you know, while all of this is underway, it's distracting, right? We all are constantly fielding information from all over the place as development officers. Like, our jobs are just, we have a million different bosses in many ways, right? And this is another big topic that's going to be a quote unquote distraction, especially I think during this election year, when things get just kind of destabilizing, with no doubt what will happen with deep fakes, et cetera. There's going to be a lot of noise out there. And then just like this, you know, as the universities are figuring out what to do, it will have a bit of a chilling effect on us, even though some of us are all in, fully prepared, ready to hit the ground running. Universities are hierarchical and political, and, you know, we'll be answering to those faculty and those school heads and the board and the donors. A lot of communication going back and forth about how we're using these tools. So that is how I see, and like in our early work with clients, like usually what happens is we start working together, we come up with a plan, and then about partway through the conversation, before we've decided exactly what work we're going to do with a university, we get a faculty member or two involved. And, you know, some of them are all for it, and some of them want us to move a little bit more slowly. So that is how, oh, I wanted to tell everybody, I forgot I had this slide in here. If you don't have ChatGPT Plus, do get it. Absolutely. Don't use 3.5. If the $20 a month is a deterrent, I'm going to share with you how to make your money back immediately. If you may not know, but with ChatGPT 4, it allows you to take pictures. So you can take a picture of your closet and you can ask ChatGPT, what should I wear? I'm going to, you know, a wedding shower, or going to St. Patrick's Day celebration. We're supposed to dress like leprechauns, or, you know, I'm going to a wedding, whatever. So you can, instead of going shopping at the store or online, just go shopping in your closet. So take a picture of your closet, and you'll ask ChatGPT, what should I wear? This is the occasion. So you don't have to buy new clothes, because you're so sick of your clothes. I know, me too. I want to go buy new clothes, but go take a picture of your closet instead, and you will come up with an awesome outfit. And it's amazing. It doesn't have to be you don't have to organize your closet first or anything. And then the other way, and this works every single day, take a picture of your refrigerator or a picture of your pantry or both, because you can take 4 pictures for each chat. Take 4 pictures, whatever, and ask ChatGPT, what can I make for dinner without going to the store? And so you can finally have an easy way to use like the rest of the carrots you didn't use from dinner earlier this week, or whatever random odd assortment of groceries you might have left over. And I know that going to the grocery store is really expensive now. So, you can easily make back $20 just by getting dinner for one day. So that is it. And I know that in the beginning you might be like, well, I don't know how often I'm going to use it. When you get ChatGPT 4, you'll just start using it for everything. Like, I don't even really think of use cases anymore. I have to keep reminding myself that there are like specific uses for ChatGPT because I use it all the time on everything. You can make images, you can crunch data, you can make your own custom GPT, so your own little bot, so you can do exactly what you want to do. So anyway, that is just because I love you all and I want you to be happy and healthy and enjoying generative AI with the rest, with like the rest of us. So I encourage you to get the $20 a month subscription. So that is the first time I've actually talked about higher ed, like pedagogy and policies and Gen AI, and I'm hopeful that was helpful. I wanted to share just a couple of use cases that I think are especially high return on investment for those of you who are fundraisers, marketers, recruiters, et cetera, who are in the group. So when I think about the many, many things that we can do with generative AI that are so much easier to do now, I like to really focus on the ones that improve the quality of either my work or my collaboration with others or with the donor journey. So we could use generative AI for so many different things, but I zero in on the ones where it really is going to have an impact on the quality, not just the time. The things that are going to save time, those are going to happen, and you'll figure that out as like almost as like a side effect of learning how to use generative AI for specific things. So let me give you an example of how I really love working with ChatGPT, and this applies to whatever area of advancement you're in. It is an incredible thought partner. So if you can just, sit, and by the way, you can talk to your ChatGPT when you have ChatGPT 4, you'll just be in conversation, just talking back and forth. So I'll use the example of building a donor strategy. So I'm going to be in conversation with ChatGPT, and I might say, I'm going to go see Minnie Mouse next week to talk about our program for let's see, it's a STEM girls wilderness camp. Can you help me prepare for this visit? Okay. You'll go back and forth. ChatGPT, you can have ChatGPT ask you questions. So I could say, can you ask me 10 questions about this visit, and we will walk through it together. So ChatGPT might say, can you tell me a little bit about Minnie Mouse? So you say something about Minnie Mouse. Then it'd say, tell me about the wilderness program. Maybe you just drop in a URL to the wilderness program. Then it says, okay, what do you want to do? What's your desired outcome for the visit? Oh, my desired outcome for the visit is that I would love for Minnie Mouse to be on the journey to considering a gift for the wilderness camp. Okay, what questions do you think she might have? ChatGPT can tell you the questions that might come up. And you say, oh, those are some good ones. I think she's going to ask about that. How would I respond to that objection? ChatGPT can give you some ideas about how to respond to a potential objection. Then it might be wonderful. Can you help me create an agenda for the meeting? Okay, we'll create a little bit of an agenda. Maybe maybe you decide in conversation with ChatGPT that you are actually going to share the agenda with Minnie Mouse in advance, or ask her to help you create the agenda. Maybe share the draft of the agenda. Then you have the opportunity to refine it. After that, maybe you'll say, let's see. Oh, how about this? So maybe you're like, I'm not sure if I want to ask for the gift or not on this visit. Talk to ChatGPT about that. Say, can we weigh the pros and cons of asking for a $50,000 gift during this visit versus asking when Minnie Mouse comes to talk to the come visit the girls at camp, right? And you can start weighing, you could do it this way or you could do it that way. What are the pros and cons of doing it this way versus that way? At the end, I have by the way, if anyone's interested, I have a custom GPT I made that helps you get centered before a meeting. So let's say you're racing to like an admin building on campus for a really important meeting with like the VP for communications, or you are racing to a donor visit, or you can just spend 5 minutes you're talking to ChatGPT, and my app walks you through, like, are you prepared to listen 80% of the time? Let's see. Are you prepared with your objection to respond to objections? Do you know what your top 3 talking points are? And then it walks you through a little breathing exercise. And then in the end, it says, when you're done, please come back and leave me a voice memo on how the visit went. So that's the next use case I'll share with you really quickly, is meeting workflows. So any meeting you have, I would recommend that you adopt this immediately, if not sooner. Well, first get ChatGPT 4 and then start doing what I'm about to share. And I have videos, I've walkthroughs of this galore. So just reach out to me if this doesn't make sense. But after a meeting, what you're going to do is you're going to come and leave yourself a voice memo using ChatGPT 4. You're going to say, here's what we talked about at the meeting, and always use, pseudonyms. So Minnie Mouse and I talked about the wilderness camp. Here were some of the questions she had. She also shared XYZ. Her dog is doing this. The pastor guy that she usually talks to about her philanthropy is going to be out of town on a mission for the next 2 years. That might delay things. She had questions and comments, and she went right? Like, basically just a verbal meeting overview / contact report. Then you ask ChatGPT to organize those notes for you so that they make sense. The point is that you don't have to use your editing function in your brain that you use when you type things out. You can just word vomit, and it will turn it into something that actually makes sense. If you are turning those things into contact reports for a CRM, or whether you're in sales or whether you're in fundraising, a contact report or TPS report or whatever, I have a prompt that will write you your contact report from that. But anyone could, of course, create their own prompt. I could give you a starter one if you're interested. And then you will have your email follow-up template that you will create. It'll take some refinement, but you will train your generative AI on how you talk in your follow-up emails. Like, generally speaking, a follow-up email for me is pretty cut and dried, because my goal, what I'm trying to communicate after a meeting, when I'm sending a follow-up, is very clear. Like, it's not a lot of la, because what I'm trying to do is say, here's what we talked about, and there was a lot of la there. I'm cutting through all that noise and saying, here are the 3 things that we agreed to, right? So over a short period of time, working with your LLM, if it's ChatGPT or if you prefer another one, you can train the model on how to speak in your voice and a format to use for your emails. So it will actually draft the email for you. And then after that, you can have it draft your to-do list. So again, the workflow starts with, you're talking, you're doing pre-work for the meeting in conversation with ChatGPT as your thought partner. Okay. Then you are, after the meeting, leaving yourself a voice note that will go through a prompt that you create, or like I said, I can give you one that will organize your notes. Your verbal ramblings will get organized into something that makes perfect sense. And you can even have that turn into a format of a contact report. I have my contact report creator. It sends me 2 potential titles for each contact report so that I can so I don't even have to think of the title, but I also don't want ChatGPT deciding on the title because, I want my CRM, I want my titles to be perfect in my CRM. So it's always easy to find the information that I need. And then you can have the email drafted and you can have your to-do list drafted. And we always preach about the expert in the loop. So anything I ever share with you, I'm not the girly who is saying, have ChatGPT write your email and have it go into your Outlook and just send to the donor. We talk about expert in the loop. As long as you are working in an area of your expertise, you are fully qualified to determine whether a piece of content is biased, is poorly written, is your best work, is, creative enough, too creative, not the right tone, whatever. That is your prerogative because you are the expert. You are the expert in the loop. Now, in my case, if I started writing a research paper on black holes, I am no longer the expert in the loop. At the very best, I'm a human in the loop and I'm there to just be cross-referencing stuff, but I'm out of my depth at that point. I shouldn't be sending things out about black holes that have been generated by generative AI without a lot of double checking of things. So we always think about the expert in the loop, always expert in the loop. And that's what you guys are. So as you're working on your, as you're working on fundraising, marketing, recruitment, etc., know that it's not that the AI is problematic, right? We know that the AI is problematic, right? It's garbage in, garbage out. We humans put a whole bunch of garbage out onto the internet, and these models are trained on that same garbage. So we get that garbage right back out. We know that, but you as the expert in the loop get to decide if something is ready for prime time or not. So we will put this video, the deck, I'll put a couple of prompts too for projects that I kind of alluded to into this link tree. And if you're curious about how to use ChatGPT for storytelling and securing donor visits, I have a whole world on using ChatGPT to help you get donor visits. We should please look at that one. That one's really, really important, really helpful. I teach about how to train your large language model in your voice or your brand's voice. Again, is it going to be perfect? No, it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be pretty darn good. And that's the goal. So check those resources out. I'm here every Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. If you have something specific that you want to learn about, just DM me and I will try to cover it during one of these, or we could set up a coffee chat. And I hope that everybody has a really great weekend and that this spring-like weather, at least here in Oregon, is a source of rest and renewal for you. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you. Happy Friday.